Hello and welcome to a Firstpost PoV. It's almost been 1 year since Sheikh Hasina was ousted from power in Bangladesh. She now lives somewhere in India, reportedly in New Delhi. She, along with her top ministers and leaders, face serious charges back home in Dhaka. These include murder and, in some cases, even crimes against humanity. Joining me now is one such minister who faces those serious charges back home, Mohibul Hassan Chowdhoury, who was the education minister in Sheikh Hasina's now ousted government. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to Firstpost. Let's talk about the big issue right now in Bangladesh, which is about elections, or more specifically, when should the elections be held? Most of the mainstream parties say they should be held in December this year, but the interim regime of Mr. Yunus seems to think that the election should be held in June next year. Why do you think the interim chief, Mr. Yunus, is so reluctant to hold these elections? What is he scared of?
Thank you for connecting with me today. Mr. Yunus has a political ambition of his own. He tried this in 2007 and between 2007 and 8. He tried to float a party, and that had failed. And since then, he was hell-bent on destabilizing the elected government from that time onwards. This was flagged up by many Bangladeshi political parties as well as politicians. But then he kept his political ambition hidden, but at the same time kept on writing to his many foreign friends for help, for assistance. And after the 5th of August, he had been invited, although the word I have to use very cautiously. He was asked to take the charge of the chief advisor's position, which doesn't exist in the constitution. He took that position, and after taking the position, then using his state power, newly found state power, and his and the money that he has been receiving from many different sources, and one of them being Open Society Foundation, George Soros funded George Soros's fund. He has established a new political party by the name NCP. NCP, and after founding the party through his followers, he was trying to establish the party across the country. He has banned the oldest political party of Bangladesh, Bangladesh Awami League, which was the party which founded the country and led the war of independence from Pakistan. He banned the party and expected that the supporters and followers of other political parties would join his state-sponsored political party, which comprised of radicals, militants, even hooligans in some cases, and also some civil society members and the protest leaders. And now that he sees that it is not that easy to establish a political party and then sort of establish themselves in a democratic election, he's trying to delay as much as possible. Now, the constitution as it stands, he doesn't have any sort of legal basis to hold on to this position that he's holding now. So he's talking about redrafting the constitution. He's talking about reforms for which he, of course, does not have any political mandate. So if he can delay the election as long as possible, he will have that space to establish his party and perhaps negotiate with other political parties and have a stake in government running in the future, which is why unconstitutionally and apolitically, he's trying to hold on to the position that he has now. Without, if there is an election, he will have absolutely no stake in politics. He does not have the political strength, except for the Dhaka city. He doesn't have any standing anywhere. And even in Dhaka city, he has to rely on the police, on the local administration, on many different elements to simply hold ground in Dhaka. So that is why we have seen that his administration had stopped BNP's mayoral candidate who apparently had received a court order to take oath as the mayor of Dhaka. Even that he's blocking. So he's not tolerating any opinion which goes against his political ambition, including the political party with whom he's meant to have some kind of a cozy relationship. Even they are now struggling to get across to Mr. Yunus, and they have in fact said it in public meetings that he's a megalomaniac, obsessed with himself. He thinks he's right. He thinks he has the mandate. He thinks he's an all-knowing, almost a divine character in politics who has the right and mandate to do whatever he feels like.
Right. Now, you said in January that Bangladesh should not give in to the radical extremist forces that are trying to take over the country's society. It's almost been 5 months since then. Would you say those radical forces have prevailed, unfortunately, in Dhaka, or would you say there's still time to salvage?
Since taking power on the 8th of August, his law advisor, which is the equivalent to the law minister, had been instructing courts to release radical militants who were not from any particular political party, but they were involved in terrorism, involved in radicalizing the youth, and who were imprisoned by the court system in the past and sentenced and convicted. They have been getting bails, like as if they are political prisoners. And within 24 hours of these bail hearings, they have been released from the prisons. So you can see that he's trying to create an ecosystem of radical elements who he hopes will be able to hold the ground for him. So he's trying to create that radical ecosystem, including these absolutely known convicted militant elements. And with the help of these elements, he's trying to pressure the army, the police, the administration of Bangladesh, and establish himself in politics.
Now, one thing the interim regime has been doing consistently is downplaying or diluting the legacy of the 1971 Liberation War, in which your country, Bangladesh, was founded. We've seen that public holidays linked to the movement have been banned by the interim regime. We've seen that the new regime is also cozying up to Pakistan, which was the perpetrator of those crimes way back in 1971, and also questioning the role played by India's military in that war. What do you think is the end goal here? What is the Yunus regime trying to turn Bangladesh into?
Mr. Yunus, in 1971, had no role in our War of Independence. He was in the United States. He has tried to recreate a fake history in his favor using the large newspaper, the highly circulated newspaper Prothom Alo, by concocting a story of his alleged involvement in our liberation war whilst he was abroad. Of course, for the last 52 years, none of this was in the public domain, but he's recreating history in his favor. His entire family was against the War of Independence. His father, who is from Chittagong, I am also from Chittagong, we know that the family was part of the peace committees which were formed by the Pakistani military at that time. His father, Mr. Dulamia Saudagar, a businessman from Chittagong, he was part of the peace committee. So the entire clan was part of the Pakistani, the establishment of that time. So, of course, he has a grudge. He has a grudge that East and West Pakistan broke away, Bangladesh became independent, and he wants to rewrite the history in his favor. Therefore, he wants to call this particular 5th of August hooliganism, the riot, as in the War of Independence, which has nothing to do with of course, the 1971 war or the political issues that we have been facing since then. I mean, he is trying to portray this through this so-called July proclamation, which he intends to be the new proclamation for a new constitution, thereby destabilizing the entire constitutional infrastructure that was painstakingly built since 1971. So the man is trying to bring in constitutional anarchy. The man is trying to rewrite history. He's destroying bilateral relationship that Bangladesh had built in the region. And of course, we feel, therefore, that he's acting as a stooge of some power who are beyond our reach.
Your party, the Awami League, which is also Sheikh Hasina's party, has been banned by the government in Dhaka. So as things stand, if elections were to be held, whether in December or in June next year, your party will not be able to contest. So what's the future of the Awami League? Are you in touch with the cadre on the ground? Are they being persecuted? What does the roadmap look like for the Awami League now?
You see, the party is active. From the grassroots to the main cities, the party is holding demonstrations, protests, and speaking out against the excesses of this regime. And I'm sure you're aware of the purge and the persecution against the party. I have more than 100 murder cases against me. Many of our activists have been given cases, hundreds of cases. Our leader, she has been also accused in nearly 200 murder cases. So despite the persecution and the purge, the party is active. Having seen all of this, he has gone for this absurd step, which is to ban the party temporarily, because he can't control the party's activism. And he has put in blanket censorship on the media, where they can't even use the word Awami League when they're reporting. So, and despite all these talks of freedom of speech, etc., he has said that anyone is speaking about Awami League in a positive manner in social media will be prosecuted. Now, this is the extreme extent that he has gone to, and this is in writing. This is in writing in the government circular that he has passed. So, of course, Awami League has seen this. Awami League had seen this in post-1975. Awami League had seen this in 1971. Awami League had seen every time in the then Pakistan military took over. So Awami League is able to overcome this obstacle. It is nothing for the Awami League. However, we want to build bridges with other political forces, democratic, liberal, secular political forces, and including even the liberal Islamist parties who have no grudge against India or who have no intention to bring in a Sharia-based society in Bangladesh. So, of course, we want to build a broad-based consensus in the country. In the past, mistakes were made. Of course, we do confess that mistakes were made either through the administration or through our leadership, but we don't want to alienate anyone in this critical time. And therefore, we are supporting the movement by many of the political parties who are wanting an end of this interim regime and who are aiming for a political leadership transition in the country.
Like I mentioned at the start, a lot of leaders of the Awami League, including the former Prime Minister herself, are in exile because you face very serious charges back home. And Mr. Yunus is trying to get you all extradited back to Dhaka and make you stand trial. Now, I wonder, have allies of the regime tried to reach out in any way or intimidate or harass you, mainly through online means?
Of course. I mean, we have been attacked by their cyber goons. Yunus maintains a team of cyber activists from his Yunus Center and across the world who write things against us. And if you go to my Wikipedia page, they have put in so many different links of news which they have created against us and branding myself and my colleagues as genocidal leaders, as people who are fleeing from crimes against humanity, so that they can establish their narrative about this quote-unquote crimes against humanity. The UN had a team which was meant to be neutral, which was meant to do the fact-finding in an objective and neutral manner, but the team was not even given access to communicate with us. So it was a one-sided report. Even in the one-sided report, the UN team, given the evidences that were presented to them and the people on their side that they have spoken to, even they did not feel that crimes against humanity and genocide had occurred whilst this riot was going on. In fact, they had categorically said that they have to be given access to all the information and all the stakeholders and the government officials of the time. So very few were given access to the UN team. So the man is trying to build his narrative across the world because he has been awarded this Nobel Peace Prize. He feels that that is sort of a blank check to do whatever he feels like. So he's the peace promoter in the region, in the country, although we do not have any evidence of his any activism to bring about peace in any conflict anywhere in the world. And yet, because of his close relationship with certain organizations such as Clinton Foundation and Open Society Foundation and other foundations which have been accused by President Donald Trump himself that they go and destabilize elected governments in different countries. So he had been doing what he has been doing. And this was going on since 2008. And we had felt that. And when we had uncovered his misappropriation from the organization, which was actually funded and founded by the government, when we had uncovered that he was not giving taxes because he claimed that all his businesses are social business and he doesn't take any dividend, and instead he wasn't paying, he was simply taking the dividend for himself to establish new businesses. And when the tax authorities went after him, that's when the man sort of cried. He made this outcry to the rest of the world, to his friends, that he was being victim of political persecution by our government. And now that he's in power, the same tax authority which went after him uncovered his huge tax misappropriation. He's simply trying to ban the National Board of Revenue of the country because he has so much grudge against the tax authority itself. So you've seen that he tried to abolish the Board of Revenue, which is the government's exchequer, government's main treasury, because he has that personal grudge against the authority.
We've seen that former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has started speaking out from exile. Even last week, she released a statement where she criticized Muhammad Yunus and called him a militant leader of the interim regime. Last year, if you'd asked me, Ms. Hasina did not seem to have much of a role left in Bangladeshi politics. But considering how things have evolved since then, and considering how unpopular the interim regime has become, what do you think is going to be Ms. Hasina's role going forward? Do you envision a future in which she is able to return to Dhaka and once again contest in elections?
You see, if the country, if they declare the election schedule, and whichever government is in place, I'm not saying Yunus will ever do it, because it is his lifelong ambition to get rid of Awami League and the legacy of 1971, which he's doing. Whilst he's in power, we don't foresee that he will do anything to reconciliate, to bring about some sort of political transition in the country. He is not intending to do that at all. He is at the end of his career. So he wants to see the end of Awami League before he leaves this world. So this is why he's taking all these extreme measures. Now, if this government is not in place, whichever government comes in, they have to create a level playing field for all. And although the most active political party in Bangladesh now, BNP, has somewhat agreed to this ban of Awami League by the interim regime, many within their cadres, within their senior leadership, feels that this is not sustainable. And we firmly believe that if the Yunus regime goes, the BNP will not have to agree to these absurd, arbitrary measures taken by the Yunus regime. And we feel that this arbitrary banning will be lifted. Even if it is not lifted, we are there in the ground. And if they continue in the manner that they are continuing, the country will go towards a worse sort of civil war-like situation. And that is the fear that we all have. I mean, ultimately, how many of us were able to go into safe places to save ourselves? Very few, compared to the size, the sheer size of the party. And the entire grassroots is there, is everywhere. They are being purged and persecuted every day. Many have been killed since these guys have taken over. Many police officials had been killed. So they're almost on the edge now, and this is the tipping point for the party, for the society in general, and they cannot take this anymore. And either from now on, either they go or the country goes. That's the situation that we are in. We don't want a civil war-like situation in the country. We want the country to transition into a normal democratic political process. However, these elements which are holding on to power right now are anarchists, militants, and I should say, utopian Islamists who have this vision of, global revolution in the way they speak. I think whatever they say, you will find resonance in how Islamic State in Syria and in the Middle East, how they had spoken about the global order, the Ummah, and how their people are being persecuted, etc. So these people are utopian dreamers, but at the same time anarchists. They know nothing of statecrafting. They know nothing about how to bring about some sort of certainty in society and the economy. Even the IMF, the World Bank, the ADB, who praised economic progress done under our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, he at first tried to discredit all those assessments and reports by the international organizations. And now he's saying that the growth that he's bringing into the country will be higher than what we have achieved. Whereas IMF and World Bank and ADB, they're saying that the country's growth have halved. More than 1 crore people have now fallen into poverty because factories are being shut. And whilst the factories are being shut, the demand for electricity is less. In urban areas, he's able to perhaps manage the electricity demand a little better. And he's claiming that as better management of power and utilities. So the man is able to create lots of fictitious, fraudulent stories. His entire life was filled with episodes of fraudulent activities. The project that he claims that he founded, the Grameen Bank, it wasn't his project. It was an experiment by Chittagong University, which he took over later. It was a project where the government of Bangladesh gave money to, which he claimed that it was his brainchild. And even when I was in the education ministry, we had uncovered this drama that he had at that time. He went to this UNESCO event in Azerbaijan, and a sculptor gifted him a souvenir. And then he came to Bangladesh and claimed that UNESCO gave him an award. Now, I was the chairman of the UNESCO Commission of Bangladesh, being the education minister, and we wrote to UNESCO and asked whether Dr. Yunus had been given a UNESCO award, because we need to know, we are the UNESCO Commission in Bangladesh. And they had written to us categorically that he was not given any reward. At an event where he was invited, he was given a souvenir by a sculptor from Israel who designed the souvenir, which is usually awarded to other awardees of UNESCO. Now, that whole story he concocted and claimed that it was an award by the UNESCO. So the man runs a lot of fraudulent activities across the world by the money that he had remitted outside of Bangladesh illegally, misappropriated from all the ventures that he was awarded by the government to run. For example, the Grameen phone, it was the license was given by our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to him because he claimed that it will work for the benefit of the poor women in village areas. Instead, he sold majority stake to Telenor without consulting the government. And the stake that he holds in personal capacity, he created a private trust, a Grameen Telecom Trust, not to give any tax on the dividend that he was receiving. And we have uncovered a lot of dividends were actually paid to him in France, through which he had purchased expensive, luxurious assets in France. And also in the United States, he had founded Grameen Trust in the United States. And I think Indian authorities should also investigate his Grameen Foundation in India. How did he manage to get the fundings to run his Grameen operation in India? Because the shady the obscure elements which support him, organizations such as Open Society, founded by George Soros Foundation, we know what they're up to. We know what they do in different countries, attempting regime change to serving their interest. So I think all the countries across the world should investigate all the ventures founded by Mr. Yunus in their countries, where the money is coming from. Are these the funds which were generated by the poor people of Bangladesh? Are these the funds which were meant to go to the poor people of Bangladesh, through which he's living his this global leadership dream?
Now, one thing Ms. Sheikh Hasina has repeated multiple times is the role played by the United States in what happened. She says that the US pressured her to give up an island, the St. Martin's Island, which is located near the Bangladesh-Myanmar border. When she refused, that's when she was toppled from power. You were in government from 2019. Were there discussions within the government about this pressure from the United States? And if so, what did you make of this push from Washington? Was it about containing China? Was it about boxing in India? What was the reason behind this demand from Washington?
Of course, these geostrategic matters are dealt by the security establishment and the defense establishment. I wouldn't be privy to it. But as I was part of the government, we had this discussion sort of informally. We heard about these discussions. Of course, where it came from, I wouldn't know. But the pressure was, from what I understand, the pressure was there since our birth. You must have seen contents online where our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, was approached by different countries to have military bases within Bangladesh. So the point, the position of our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was that Bangladesh cannot be a hotbed of global rivalry, a theater of war. You see, it is a country of 170 million people. If you have a Peshawar-like situation, as they did have in Pakistan, where helpless, desperate Afghan refugees were trained to become Talibans and Mujahideens, and what was the outcome of it? Pakistan is destabilized, Afghanistan is destabilized. India is having to fight elements like Lashkar-e-Taiba and other militant outfits, and the whole region is destabilized. So being a responsible politician and a statesman, she was not in favor of having any country having any military base within Bangladesh, because see, geostrategically, we are very close to China. We are almost inside India. India shares the longest border with us, and we cannot have instability in our country in order to sort of have minimal peace in the region itself. So when we had opened our door for the Rohingyas, we only focused on their humanitarian rehabilitation. We did not agree to their demands to weaponize them and to send them back with weapons and fight the war in Myanmar. We were totally against all these kinds of radical suggestions. This is what I have sort of learned from my position in the government, but I'm not privy to these discussions. So we kept the refugee camps as refugee camps. We did not turn them into many cantonments for future militants, and we were firmly against them. But certain elements, as you'd appreciate, would like that to happen. Certain elements would like instability and war and the theater of war to open here, so that the war machine of some countries benefit.
Finally, you did briefly touch upon that United Nations report and the investigation into what happened last year. I know you have reservations about that investigation and the sort of information that was available to the team that visited Dhaka. But the team did say that violence was used against protesters in July last year, and that possibly crimes against humanity was committed by the previous regime. In hindsight, after 1 year and 1 year in exile, would you say that things could have been handled differently?
You see, when you have a riot-like situation, both sides defend themselves to their maximum capacity. Now, when the protesters, the quote-unquote protesters, but we found radical elements within them as well, had attacked the civilians and other businesses, as small tradespeople, including our political activists, they had to defend themselves. So, of course, if you are facing violence, you will, you will respond with violence at the same time. So I won't say that we were defending ourselves in a peaceful way, because we are facing violence. We had to also violently respond. And therefore, I'm not going to claim that we had a Gandhian policy of tolerating whatever violence was thrown at us. So yes, there was violent clashes. Now, whether the law enforcement took the neutral position, in many cases they did. But how could they have taken neutral position for or against any side when they were themselves attacked? Hundreds of police constables are still missing. They were killed by these jihadi elements. These protesters, we had appealed to them repeatedly that, look, all the demands that you had in place, we have met them. The court has given you ruling in your favor. But they were not agreeing on any terms, because they knew that the elements which they were harboring were hell-bent on ousting the government. The UN report, you've mentioned that they have said possible crimes against humanity. They did not use the word possible crimes against humanity. They had said, with the one-sided evidence and interviews that they were given, they had said that human rights violation had occurred. Now, the extent of human rights violation can differ from situation to situation. If you don't produce an accused within 24 hours to a court of law, it is also a human rights violation. Now, human rights violation happens in any riot-like situation, whichever the government is in place, whether it is an authoritarian or a democratic government, whatever it is, human rights violation happens. The point is whether, as government, we wanted to hold those incidents to accountability. And we did. We were the first one who said that we would like UN to come and hold independent investigations. We were the one who actually had commissioned a judicial inquiry commission. None of this could take place because after our ouster from the 5th of August, the commissions which were formed by us and the call for UN investigation that we have made, that was not allowed to continue. So Mr. Yunus went personally to Volker Turk, who has his own personal agenda. As you know, he has said many things about how India handles its internal affairs. And the man has his own agenda, and he had instructed the investigators to investigate whilst one side is totally absent. Now, in a clandestine manner, we were able to give some interviews to these investigators through online medium, but none of us could appear before them in person. We could not give them any evidence that we had in our record. So it was 90-10 in the way they sort of gathered the evidence. All the evidences that they had received were from the government of the time. I mean, not even the government authority. It was the Yunus Center and the newspaper Prothom Alo and the Daily Star, who, through their reporters, had some footages and some alleged footages from bystanders, onlookers, etc. Even when they analyzed those footages, they had said that claims are being made that fires were shot from helicopters. However, the guns which we can see from the footages are not lethal weapons. They are tear gas guns. They are not lethal weapons. Whereas this so-called International Crimes Against Humanity Tribunal in Bangladesh repeatedly keeps claiming that helicopters were used to shoot at unarmed protesters, which is a total lie, because the helicopters which were over the protesters were not gunships. You cannot shoot lethal weapon from civilian helicopters, and yet they are hell-bent on establishing this narrative because they had deployed trained assassins, trained shooters. And I mean, if you look at the Maidan Revolution in Ukraine, the bullets which were found to assassinate the protesters, many of them have said that the same sort of bullets were used in Bangladesh. The then Home Advisor, who was from the military, Brigadier Shakhawat, he said it in public. 7.6 something caliber bullets were found, which are not used by any law enforcement agency in Bangladesh. So how were these used to kill innocent civilians. Who used them? Who are the people who had targeted innocent protesters to increase the death toll, to agitate the public more? Of course, they were agent provocateur. They're within the sabotager. They sabotaged the whole protests. So as people were being killed, we realized that our people are going to be killed. These are our citizens, and for the sake of what? For the sake of us being in power. I mean, we do not want to cling on to power whilst our people are being killed like flies. And these forces which were unleashed to attack our innocent civilians who were protesting against us, and protests were there for the country, since the country's birth. And we are used to with handling protests, but we are not used to handling a situation where innocent protesters are handpicked and killed to increase the death toll. Before the protest broke out into major riot-like situation, a particular country issued a statement that 7 people had been killed, whereas until that day, not a single person was killed. Now, how did they know that 7 people were already killed? So a lot of things were preempted in a rush to oust the government. And our honorable Prime Minister of that time, she was meant to travel abroad, and this whole riot was meant to happen whilst she was abroad. Now, fortunately, she stayed in. She was meant to go to Spain and Brazil for a considerable period of time, and the plan was to hold this whilst she was abroad and storm the parliament and Ganabhavan and other places and raise their flag while she would be abroad. Now, in the end, she didn't go, and you've seen what had happened. So it was a mastermind. Mr. Yunus himself stated this to the global media, that he had a mastermind in place. It was a meticulous plan. It didn't come from us. The man himself went to the United States and wanted to introduce the militants, the masterminds which were behind his meticulous plan. So it's not something that we are saying. Now, why doesn't the UN report mention anything about the meticulous plan he himself said to the public? None of this was mentioned. So, of course, he had influenced. He has a good standing in international organizations. All his life, all he did was networking with global hobnobs. And therefore, of course, he will have a far more leverage than any statesman or any government in influencing international organizations. And you know how they're able to change the narrative. And incidents after incidents happened across the world. Why Bangladesh suddenly became the attention of the global media in the lead up to their riot? Because it was all pre-planned. I mean, he had unlimited supply of money. You've seen nearly $29 million was allocated for NGOs which had no existence in the country. And in my ministry, education ministry, we had seen a US aid project where, when I tried to dig into it, I mean, what is the project actually doing? What are the objectives of the project? There was nothing substantial, and yet the funding was substantial. Were the funds used to agitate teachers in the lead up to the riot that they had planned? I don't know. I can't comment on this. I was not there long enough to investigate this. I was only there for 5 months in the government until this riot-like situation happened. So it was part of his meticulous plan. He claimed that it's not us. He gathered together. I mean, just how Jinnah played the tune of the extremists in 1947, he realized that the only organized force that he can use against the elected government, the democratic government, or the political government, I should say, are the extremists who are hell-bent on seeing the end of that government. So he had that alliance of convenience with them and deployed them to oust us, and he agreed to it.
You say that the tactics being deployed by Mr. Yunus reminds you or are very similar to those employed by Muhammad Ali Jinnah in 1947. That's certainly a worrying thought. But we hope that there is a free, fair and inclusive election in Bangladesh, that the country can move forward from this unelected interim regime. Thank you so much, Mr. Chowdhoury, for speaking to First Post.
First Post now available in 9 languages on YouTube. English,
Stands at $36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
Geschäftsführenden Direktor,
Hindi,
$30 trillion ka karj mo.
Indonesian,
Pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Sekali radikali.
Japanese,
4 兆ドル以上も。
Portuguese,
Por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select a language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. First Post.